Greetings, welcome to another deckardgames YouTube thing. It's taken 25 years of waiting, but Streets of Rage 4 is finally here. Yep, if you follow my channel, you know that I am a huge Streets of Rage fanboy. It's my favorite brawler, my favorite Mega Drive/Genesis game of all time, and, along with SimCity 2000, one of my favorite games, period. While Sega kept me waiting all these years, when I finally knew that the best brawler of all time was going to have a sequel, I almost pissed my pants. Oh my god, it's Streets of Rage 4. It's finally here, I can't get enough of it. I look like a 10-year-old again. Settle down, David. Settle down, breathe, calm down. Streets of Rage 4 comes to us by the hands of LizardCube, a French developer who were responsible for Wonder Boy, the Dragon's Trap remake. Trailer after trailer and tease after tease, it's finally here, the fourth installment in the Streets of Rage franchise. If you're familiar with the Streets of Rage series, this means you did own a Mega Drive or Genesis, for those watching in North America back in the 90s. You also know that this is pure side-scrolling action at its best, a formula that works and provided countless hours of joy back in the day. There isn't much to reinvent in this genre. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. Of course, when the transition to 3D happened, everybody had to go 3D, and the brawler genre followed the same path, with various dubious results. Nevertheless, the brawler community has been kept alive, and now Streets of Rage 4 attempts to rewind time without changing the formula, and in that respect, it succeeds perfectly. What made Streets of Rage so good? Well, for me, it is a trifecta of graphics with beautiful sprites, great use of color, light and shadows, sound with some great tunes from Yuzo Koshiro back when synthesizers were a big deal, and gameplay which was spot on with truly responsive and simple controls. These three factors all combined provided some of the best 90s experience one could enjoy. In Streets of Rage 4, 10 years have passed since Mr. X and his syndicate was destroyed and apparently the city was at peace. But guess what? He had twins. Yes, Mr. X had twins. And if you're thinking the X twins, you're wrong. That would be too obvious. The new crime empire is led by the Y twins, because using the same letter would give their identities away, I guess. So former detectives Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding joined forces with Sherry Hunter, Adam's daughter, and Floyd Araya, an apprentice of Dr. Zan. Together they have to bring down the new and improved Y Syndicate. I guess this choice of narrative keeps things within the 90s family, while not taking too many risks. As mentioned before, in Streets of Rage 4 the player starts with 4 characters: Axel, Blaze, Sherry, and Floyd. Axel is an all-round fighter along with Blaze that is somewhat quicker. Sherry is the weakest when it comes to strength, but she's the fastest, while Floyd is the strongest and the slowest of the bunch. I especially enjoy playing with Sherry and her super fast and crazy moves, while she carries her guitar at her back. Oh, and I don't use Floyd whatsoever. He's cool and whatnot, but he moves like an 18-wheeler without wheels. Takes something like an hour to get him from one end of the screen to the other. Now for real, he's super slow. Controls are pretty straightforward, thankfully. One button attacks, other jumps, other defense, and the fourth picks stuff from the ground, while the movement is left for the D-pad or analog stick. Luckily the movement feels very fluid, controls are tight and very responsive. Every punch and kick feels like a punch and kick. There are some button combinations that can be used to perform special attacks like a running attack, a back attack, or a special move that can only be performed when available, which is indicated with a golden star near the player's health bar. Throughout the game the controls are kept elegantly simple, and on the lower difficulties you can get through the whole game with barely more than a single move, although that doesn't mean this is a button masher. Situational awareness and positioning yourself on the screen is very important, and often there's a good amount of kidding around on the screen, watching out for enemy tells before choosing to make your strike at the most opportune moment. Rule number 1: do not get between enemies in a brawler. There's also a stronger attack if you hold down the attack button, dash and backwards attacks, plus a very useful grab which, depending on the characters, can be used to vault over enemies or throw them. The balance between variety and accessibility is handled very well, with weapons, most of which can be thrown, also having a small amount of nuance, alongside environmental dangers that range from puddles of toxic goo to a giant wrecking ball that both you and enemies can punch around the screen. Streets of Rage 4 also manages to avoid some of the common pitfalls of the genre, as there's no constantly fighting at the edge of the screen, punching bad guys you can barely see. It's also relatively easy to escape if you're trapped between two enemies on either side. Graphics-wise, the creator chose to go with cartoonish-like characters instead of the old sprites or more realistic ones. It's kind of like cel-shaded graphics, and I guess this is a relatively well-made choice, since a game like this doesn't try to be realistic, and cel shading gets things close to the original aesthetics of the game. Backgrounds look beautiful with lovely use of color, light and shadows. Some almost look like hand-drawn sketches. Almost every level has stuff that can be destroyed, secret places where one can find some valuable items, and hazards which can be used against our opponents. One thing that I have to point out is that I felt that the game was too bright. It lacks some of the darkness of the original Streets of Rage series. But regardless of this personal and minor issue, characters look detailed. Enemies look awesome too, and while in a brawler you know you're going to have repetitive enemies with different names, there's quite a few varieties here also. Boss fights look amazing too, great detail all around, they look big and menacing. Each boss has his own set of skills that a player needs to know to defeat it successfully, and a lot of them call for reinforcements during the battle. In the sound department, sound effects are pretty cool. Again, every punch and kick feel like a punch and kick, not only because of the controls, but also because of the sound effects. I played it with my speakers really loud, and my subwoofer was punching me in the gut. When it comes to music, the game falls a little flat. As a fan of the original game's soundtrack with that beautiful Yuzo Koshiro synthesizer music, I felt a little disappointed with the soundtrack of Streets of Rage 4. It's a little monotonous. The general tone of the music is also noticeably less hardcore than before, almost as if it's trying to fit with the more cartoonish style of the visuals. It is a little slow. I miss that industrial techno music from the 90s. Oh, wait a minute. What is this? One can change the music to the original one. You got me, LizardCube, you got me. Change the music to retro. Done. Being a new game, of course there had to be some unlockable stuff, because that's how we roll nowadays. And despite there being a wide range of unlockable extras and characters, most of which are just old school Mega Drive sprites, they're not accessed in any interesting way, but just by grinding your way to an ever higher score, which shows a peculiar lack of showmanship. Of course, one big thing about Streets of Rage is playing with real people by your side. And yes, co-op mode is here. Up to 4 can play at once in the same game locally and 2 online, which is where the game really comes alive in all its 90s glory. Streets of Rage 4 doesn't try to redefine the genre, and this is both good and bad. Little risks were taken. LizardCube took a well-made series and created a 4 installment to it, nothing more. I would have liked to see them try something new with the genre. On the other hand, Streets of Rage is perfect for me, So why try to reinvent something that is already perfect? Do I recommend Streets of Rage 4? Hell yeah! The genre and Streets of Rage itself is clearly still bursting with potential, and I can only hope that it will be a considerably shorter wait until the next one, while I wonder why it even fell out of fashion in the first place. So if you like this video, please feel free to check all the others right here on the channel. I have plenty more, including a few ones on playing brawlers. Leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel because your support is very much appreciated. I hope that after watching this video, you go to the usual places and show your support and purchase Streets of Rage 4. As always, thank you very much for watching this, and until my next video, take care.